Elizabeth Warren, let's just call it what it is here. The media has blatantly blacked out people like Tulsi Gabbard. She gets barely any coverage, even though, and when she does get coverage, she's called a Assad apologist. Even though during the first debate, by Google searches, she was the most searched candidate of anybody. I believe the second debate, she was, if not the most, one of the most searched candidates on Google. Blackout. And when they do cover her, it's to call her an Assad apologist or a Russian stooge, and all this stuff that we expect the corporate media to do. Whereas Elizabeth Warren, honestly, for those of you that were paying attention in 2007 and 2008, Elizabeth Warren, frankly, has gotten the Obama treatment so far as CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Very adoring, very showering coverage, which right out of the gate, as a cynical independent journalist myself, I find suspicious. I don't know about you. I find that suspicious. Why is the corporate media showering Elizabeth Warren with attention? Then we had the story a couple weeks ago, which if you don't know, Elizabeth Warren has been meeting behind closed doors with a who's who of the Democratic establishment. This was from the New York Times. She's having tea, hot tea, they reported, with members of the Democratic establishment all over the country. She's text messaging them. She's calling them. She's meeting in person. Some of you might say, for people that are a little bit more giving benefit of the doubt to people like Elizabeth Warren, well, Jordan, she's trying to win the nomination, so of course she is going to, be speaking with party leaders and trying to establish relationships and trying to have hot tea with them in order to get their political endorsement. Honestly, to me, it's very evident that her political calculation might be, well, we've got a lot of candidates here. It's quite possible, if I'm Elizabeth Warren, I'm thinking, I'm not going to get enough pledged delegates on the first ballot to become the nominee. Joe Biden might not get, if Joe Biden even makes it to the nomination, or Iowa, we'll get to that in a minute. Biden might not get enough pledged delegates. There's too many candidates, so we're all just going to split the vote. Bernie might not get enough pledged delegates on the first ballot, and the DNC, which everybody rejoiced when they moved super delegates from the first ballot to the second ballot, well, frankly, if there's so many candidates, and as such, nobody could get the plurality of pledged delegates needed to win the nomination outright on the first ballot, then as such, the DNC rules right now, the super delegates would be able to vote on the second ballot. So wouldn't it behoove somebody like Elizabeth Warren to basically be playing footsie with the who's who of the Democratic Party establishment? Again, New York Times reported several weeks ago, she's meeting for tea with local leaders, state leaders, national leaders, and she's text messaging with them. She is basically playing the game. Now, again, some of you might say, I don't know if my audience would say it, but some would say, oh, gee, Jordan, breaking news. She's a politician and she's meeting with political figures to try and get their endorsements, to try and establish a relationship. Well, frankly, there's a difference between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but I personally would not have that much of an issue if Bernie Sanders were meeting with party leaders, if Bernie Sanders was having hot tea or whatever he has with party leaders, because Bernie Sanders' record and who Bernie Sanders is would lead me to believe Bernie Sanders doing what he has to do to pluck off some of that establishment vote. But if he actually became the nominee, if he actually became the Democratic nominee or won the presidency, do I really think Bernie Sanders is going to exercise a quid pro quo with these leaders? No, I don't. I think he's doing what he has to do. I would think he's doing what he has to do to get elected, but I don't think Bernie Sanders is actually going to follow through with yes, let me have hot tea as president with the Democratic Party establishment and bend over backwards to endear myself to them. No. With Warren, frankly, I don't think if Elizabeth Warren is meeting with all these party leaders and having hot tea and text messages and phone calls, I think there's an implicit promise there. Hey, you be there for me now. You endorse me. You help my campaign on the ground with volunteering, organizing, phone calls, reaching out to local leaders. I'll be there for you when I'm the nominee, and I'll be there for you when I'm the president. That is what I think is going on when it comes to Elizabeth Warren. So if this all wasn't enough for you, Elizabeth Warren cozying up with the establishment while proclaiming to be this progressive warrior, well, Apparently, it just came out, she is cozying up to none other, wait for it, Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton. Warren and Clinton talk behind the scenes as 2020 race intensifies. Let's also say when Bernie Sanders was asked would he reach out to Hillary Clinton for any advice for this campaign, he didn't hesitate. He said no. He said no. Apparently, Elizabeth Warren, not so much. I will read a little bit of this to you. Elizabeth Warren's team doesn't want to talk about Hillary Clinton, but that doesn't mean the 2020 presidential candidate isn't talking with her party's 2016 nominee. The two women have kept a line of communication open since the Massachusetts senator decided to run for president, though only a conversation around the time Warren's launch has been previously reported, according to several people familiar with their discussions who spoke to NBC on the condition of anonymity. It's hard to know exactly how many times they've reached out to each other or precisely what they've discussed, in part because neither camp wants to reveal much or anything about their interaction, and in part because they have each other's phone numbers, and there are many ways for two high-powered politicians to communicate that don't involve their staffs. And I'll put this link, if you want to read along, right here in the super chat. So, one source was aware of just one additional call between Warren and Clinton since then, but a person who is close to Clinton said the contact has been substantial enough to merit attention, describing a conversation between the two as seemingly recent because it was front of mind for her. This quote, "That has clearly not gone unnoticed, and I think she really appreciates that," the person close to Clinton said. Clinton is a fraught subject for the Democratic contenders, perhaps for none so much as Warren, who in the shadow of Clinton's defeat is seeking to become the second woman to win the party's nod and the first woman to be elected president. As she seeks to blend her movement-based progressive campaign with a Democratic establishment long wary of her populist brand of politics, Warren has been maintaining and creating relationships with a wide array of Democratic establishment figures. I think right here is literally all you have to say about what Elizabeth Warren's campaign is. She is trying to, and blend is a nice phrase for it. She is trying to blend a persona as a movement-based progressive with the Democratic establishment. And when we use the term Democratic establishment, let's remind people what that means. We're talking about the pro-capitalist neoliberal order, the Bill Clintons of the world, the Rahm Emanuels of the world, the Chuck Schumers of the world, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, the Barack Obamas of the world, the Hillary Clintons of the world. So we're not just talking about, leaders who have been in office for many, many years. We are talking about the pro-capitalist, pro-military industrial complex, pro-money in politics, neoliberal order. So when this author for NBC has phrased it, frankly, in an appropriate way, that Elizabeth Warren is essentially trying to have her cake and eat it too. She wants to portray herself as a progressive, happy warrior, while also portraying herself as a capitalist down to my toes or bones, and mold the two. Unfortunately, not only is that ethically and politically wrong, it's also a very bad political strategy to win a national election. Ask Hillary Clinton. So I'll read a little bit more of this for you. Very concerning, if you ask me. More immediately, Warren would no doubt have to win over support from Clinton voters, particularly women and women of color, as she battles Bernie Sanders of Vermont, former Vice President Joe Biden, and the rest of a field that trails the top triumvirate. But Warren has made little effort to publicly highlight ties to Clinton, who is perceived by many on the left as too centrist and who was defeated in an election Clinton and her allies believe was heavily covered by President Donald Trump waging a misogynistic campaign. To the extent that the Democratic primary voters fear a repeat scenario in 2020, and to the extent that she's competing with Sanders for the vote of progressives, there may be good reason for Warren to keep her distance from Clinton publicly. At the same time, people who know and like both women say there are more similarities between them than some of their partisans would like to admit. Each is a policy powerhouse with an uncommon command of details and possesses the ability to master new material quickly with a deep intellectual curiosity. Like Clinton, Warren focused the early part of her campaign on developing a raft of policy proposals and rolling them out. So, Warren aides declined to discuss the relationship between the two women, the dates or content of their conversations, or the campaign's strategic thinking about whether to show proximity to or distance from Clinton. Clinton's spokesperson did not return a call. A couple things on this. First of all, as NBC says, they do not know how many times Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton have spoken. For all we know, they've spoken once or twice via phone. For all we know, they're text messaging back and forth constantly. So let's just split the middle and say they're talking semi-frequently. Now, why would Elizabeth Warren be reaching out? Let's just put it into two buckets, okay? The first bucket, why would Elizabeth Warren be reaching out to Hillary Clinton in general, right? If Hillary Clinton, who lost the 2016 election to an orange orangutan garage used car salesman, if Hillary Clinton, after that, came out and said, you know what, the Democratic Party, we as progressives, even though she's not one, we have missed the boat. We have to start talking to the Rust Belt. We need to refocus away from the, trying to endear ourselves to Wall Street banks and fossil fuel executives and pharmaceutical executives and real estate developers and all of the corrupt, revolving door in the United Corporations of America. Remember, this is not the United States of America. It's the United Corporations of America. If Hillary Clinton talked like that and had like a mea culpa after the 2016 election and said, listen, we lost. I lost. If you want to say Comey had something to do with it and all that, fine. But we need to basically have a grand reopening. You know how some businesses have a grand reopening? And we need to have a renewal of our marriage from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, some of the 70s with labor, with the working class. And we need to stop basically bending over and basically being servants to Wall Street, big oil, big pharma, real estate, and all those. I wouldn't have a problem with Elizabeth Warren talking to her in that case. If Hillary Clinton would say, listen, we need to really rethink the military-industrial complex. We cannot have wholesale change in America if we're voting for $715 billion defense budgets. Now, $738 billion defense budgets. I wouldn't have a problem if Elizabeth Warren was talking to Hillary Clinton, if Hillary Clinton had learned anything from the 2016 campaign. But obviously, that ain't the case. That's not the case. Hillary Clinton has not learned a damn thing from the 2016 election. What's remarkable to me about this is Elizabeth Warren is reaching out to Hillary Clinton not for like great political advice, because Hillary Clinton was the most unpopular Democratic presidential candidate in history. She would have been the most unpopular candidate in history between both parties if Donald Trump wasn't the most unpopular candidate. Donald Trump edged out Hillary Clinton by a little bit as far as unpopularity, unfavorables. Hillary Clinton was the most unpopular in political history. Ooh, I like that. Kip Winter, the People's Journalism. I'm going to steal that. Thank you. So you have Elizabeth Warren reaching out to Hillary Clinton for what? Hillary Clinton for the last 3 years has been basically saying Donald Trump got elected because of the Russian boogeyman, because of James Comey, because of sexism, because of misogyny, because of the mailman, because of the hurricanes, because of. It's something entirely else. In the book Shattered, which I did not read, but a journalist wrote this book, Shattered, it was revealed that as soon as Hillary Clinton lost, her top campaign people were literally manufacturing the Russian boogeyman defense and excuse to explain why she lost. In fairness, I will say this in fairness, she did win the popular vote by, I think, 3 million votes. So if we had a sane political system, if we had a democratic political system, whether we like it or not, she would have become the president. I believe the Electoral College should be abolished. But we don't. And she lost in the current voting system to the most beatable presidential candidate in Donald Trump in modern American history. Any other candidate, I believe, maybe other than Joe Biden right now, could have beat Donald Trump. But Hillary Clinton lost. So just as a strategy, what possible advice could you be asking Hillary Clinton for to win the nomination or the presidency? I don't understand. By the way, I'm going to get into why she's really reaching out to Hillary Clinton. But if you put aside that, if you were just thinking political strategy and you want to give Elizabeth Warren the benefit of the doubt, well, maybe she's reaching out to her to learn, to get from Hillary Clinton, advice on the mistakes Hillary Clinton made and what Hillary Clinton thinks Elizabeth Warren should do. Hillary Clinton, by her own account, doesn't really think she made many mistakes. She acknowledges, I didn't go campaign in Wisconsin. But other than that, am I missing something? Has Hillary Clinton and her campaign admitted what her mistakes was? Has she admitted that, oh boy, maybe if the Democratic Party under my husband, Bill Clinton, under Barack Obama, didn't push through NAFTA that decimated the entire now deindustrialized Midwest, maybe we could have had a better shot against a fake populist saying, I'm going to repeal NAFTA, and he had that trade issue very hard. Did Hillary Clinton ever said, well, maybe I lost the Wisconsin Democratic primary, maybe I lost the Michigan Democratic primary to Bernie Sanders, not because Bernie Sanders is like a new hot shiny toy, not because the kids love him, but because the people in the Midwest, the Rust Belt, cannot get excited about a candidate that called the TPP the gold standard of trade deals. That was the wife of Bill Clinton who pushed through NAFTA. In fairness, she was not the president. She did not sign NAFTA, but she supported it as First Lady. She was a pretty active First Lady. She was given a huge portfolio as First Lady, including trying to enact health care in 1993 and 1994. So I don't understand. If you want, I'm trying to be fair here. I'm trying to be fair. I'm not trying to just destroy and demolish Elizabeth Warren. But if you wanted to even give her the benefit of the doubt, what advice could you possibly get from Hillary Clinton? So why I brought that up is obviously she's not reaching out to Hillary Clinton for political advice, because you're not going to get any political advice from Hillary Clinton or the buffoons that ran her campaign, who said, we don't need to go to Wisconsin. Let's go to Arizona. We're going to win Arizona, a Republican state. Hey, let's just pull our volunteers out of Michigan. We don't need to have volunteers in Michigan. I only lost the Democratic primary there to Bernie Sanders, but we'll beat Trump. We don't need to have volunteers there. Hey, let's get on African American radio a week before the general election. Did you know that? Hillary Clinton's campaign got on African American radio in the Midwest states like a week before. So yeah, that's the person I want to call and text message. In fairness, I don't know how many times they've spoken. That article doesn't tell us how many times they've spoken. But I would assume if they have each other's numbers, they've spoken a few times. Okay. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.